Welcome to a new episode of the Letters and Layers podcast, where I share all things life lessons, personal experiences, streams of consciousness, books I love, and everything in between. It is Monday, March 31st when I am recording, and I plan on getting this done and editing and having it up for you guys bright and early tomorrow, April 1st, which is crazy to say. I can't believe 3 months of this year are already gone. I wanted to kind of just dive right in to the topic of this episode. As you can see, it is going to focus primarily on a specific way for dealing with trauma that I had to use for myself this month, just a couple weeks ago, really. There was a traumatic experience that unfortunately I went through, and I was out of town. I was not in Chicago. So I felt like I could only do this work, this trauma processing, while I was there, while I was in my immediate location. So, backstory. I went to California a couple of weeks ago for a relaxing weekend. My motivation for going was an invitation to join a group of Black women, some of them mothers, most of them mothers, some of them single women, professional women, just Black women from all walks of life, really. We are part of an online community that, provides support to each other, and the organizer like once or twice a year will organize an opportunity for women, if they're able to come and meet in person or reconnect. So there was a meetup last year that I wasn't able to go to. So this spring, there was an opportunity again to go and meet folks in person. And I was like, I'm going to go. I thought this would be an interesting opportunity for me to just go completely out of my comfort zone, go to somewhere I've never been before, meet people who I've conversed with some online. A lot of these women are very inspiring and seem really amazing, and I thought that it would be great to meet some in person. And it was at a very nice hotel beach resort. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make the trek. I'm going to, block out the time in my calendar. It was a Friday to Monday situation. So I'm going to, plan ahead, and I'm going to book my ticket. I'm going to secure my accommodations at the hotel that was provided for us to stay so that we can all be within the same vicinity. And yeah, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and do this. So the weekend was approaching, and obviously I'm a little bit nervous because I haven't really ever done anything like this before. I guess the closest thing to this, which is not even really the same, was when I went to France in college for study abroad. And I was there for 4 weeks in the summer. That only comes to mind because, in the same way I'm traveling and I'm meeting strangers, though we all go to the same school and this has been organized educationally, it's still, similar in that way. But I wasn't crossing the Atlantic. It was just, a couple hours flight to California. So considering my work schedule, it was a Friday to Monday event, like I said. And I did not shorten my work schedule for Friday. I completed my entire workday, ended at around 4:30, and then my flight was like at 8 Central Time in the evening. So got ready, left, got there on time, got to California on time. My flight landed at about 11, and the Uber, once I got out from the security area and was able to get outside, I got an Uber, which took a few minutes, and then the drive from the airport to our accommodations, like the hotel we were staying at, was about 30-ish minutes. So from landing to getting to the hotel, I would say was about an hour. So I got to the hotel at like midnight. I checked in. I got to my room, and obviously it was dark. I had reserved like a seaside room. So like I was on the first floor. You could open the door, look out, see the water and everything. It was dark, midnight, like I said, so I couldn't see anything. I just settled into, the room, took care of myself and got ready for bed. So the next morning, first thing, since I wasn't able to see outside when I got there last night, first thing I did was open the blinds, open the door, and look outside. I was in an enclosed patio with, well manicured shrubbery, so I was kind of peeking beyond. And it was beautiful. In that moment, I was so happy to come. I thought, I was still a little nervous because I still hadn't met anyone, although I had connected with a very sweet lady who also lives in Chicago with me. So we made sure to kind of connect with each other before we got on the trip so that we can, meet right away and, kind of get to know each other throughout the weekend. So yeah, I opened the door, I looked outside, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm a little nervous, but this is nice. The hotel is nice. It was like this luxurious 5-star beachside hotel resort. Depending on where you were staying in the hotel, like with your room, you had amazing views. Like it's supposed to be it's a Hyatt hotel. And like within the hierarchy, I guess, of hotels, it's like 5-star, it's like supposed to be legit. So I, looked outside, I came back in, I left the door ajar because I wanted some fresh air to come in, but I closed the blinds all the way. And in most hotels, you kind of have the sheer blind, and then you have like the blackout curtains. So I drew both all the way so you couldn't see inside at all. And at that point, I decided I wanted to work out. I have, been more serious about that lately, and I did not want to not work out while I was out of town. So I pulled up, for those who are familiar, Grow with Joe's channel on YouTube is great for like travel working out. Like if you aren't a fan of the gym or whatever, you want to work out in the privacy of your hotel room, Grow with Joe is amazing. So I pulled up a Grow with Joe workout, a 1-hour workout, and I had started the workout and I was barefoot. So I was, on a rug that was actually rather irritating on my feet. So I put a towel down to kind of soften, the impact on my soles. So I got through my workout. It was great. I felt good after the fact. So I got ready to take a shower. And I remember getting ready to go in the shower. My jewelry box, it's like a cute little circular monogram jewelry container that I got from Anthropologie that I love. I brought it with me, had all my favorite jewelry in it, my engagement ring, my wedding ring, everything. maybe I was being too hasty. I had knocked it over and I was like, ugh. So I, bent down, picked up all the jewelry, put it back in my underwear bag. So I got into the bathroom. I brought my phone with me because I wanted some music. We're in this relaxing hotel, trying to maintain the vibe. Still a little nervous because I'm yet to meet anyone. But, I'm feeling good. I had just worked out. I was like, okay, we're ready. Let's get the day started. So yeah, I brought the music into the bathroom, started the shower, and had a great shower. And I was, really just being intentional about setting the tone for the day, considering that I was in a new environment. I'm about to meet new people. There were activities planned. I just wanted to be in the right mindset and put my best foot forward. So I was probably in the bathroom for maybe 20, 25 minutes. I don't think it was more than 30, really, with everything that I did. So I came out and I ironed some of my clothes. Some articles of clothing that I was wearing needed some straightening out. So I ironed that. I put my clothes on and I was getting ready to accessorize. And then I went to my underwear bag where I put my jewelry and it was gone. So I thought I was having like a brain fart or like a mental lapse. I was like, I could have sworn I put my jewelry in here not even 30 minutes ago, because I remember it like falling, everything kind of splaying on the floor. So I knew for sure I had put my jewelry back in the box. So I was like, and then my mind went to, did someone come in here? So I looked around and I walked around the bed, and then the towel that I put down was still there. I didn't remove it after I worked out. It was still there. So I walked around and I saw that there was a footprint on the towel. It looked like a big boot, and there was dirt on the track of the boot. And I opened the blinds and I could see that there was dirt tracked into the concrete of the patio. So essentially, while I was in the bathroom, someone had come into my room, and I don't know how. I honestly, those moments of realizing what had happened was an out-of-body experience for me, because I had realized it. I had started like screaming. I was like telling myself to wake up, because it felt like a bad dream. Like I was like, phew, I was like, wake up, wake up, wake up. And I was like willing myself to wake up. And I didn't. I didn't. This was really happening. So after like a few minutes of kind of like reorienting myself to what happened, I called the front desk. I tried to keep it together on the phone, but I couldn't. So they said that they were going to have hotel staff come to the room. So not even 5 minutes later, I hear a knock on the door. It's one of the senior staff, I think. I'm crying. I am hysterical. I am trying to tell her what happened. I'm pointing to all the things that are related to what I realized just happened. So she calls more hotel staff, and they call security, and then security calls the police. So my acquaintance, who I had been in communication with prior to the trip, who, we were planning to connect. We were actually going to meet up for coffee and breakfast, because this was happening all like within the 8 o'clock hour in the morning. So we had made plans to meet at 9. And, with everything happening, I sent her a text. Hey, I can't meet you. I think someone intruded into my room. Hotel staff is involved now. I'm so sorry. So she texts me back, where are you? And I text her the room number. So she said, I'm coming. So she came to my room and pretty much stayed with me through that morning, which I am so thankful and grateful and appreciative to her for. So the hotel staff took pictures. I told them what happened, and they called the police, who got there maybe like 45 minutes later. So they saw what happened. They took pictures. They kind of walked around the premises. They took my statement. The person who came into my room only took my jewelry, which was so weird. I was thinking, is this person in their right mind? Because my wallet was accounted for, nothing was taken in my bag, which was on the nightstand next to the bed. My iPad was accounted for, which was on the same nightstand with the bag next to my bed. And then my laptop sleeve was out on the main dresser stand. My laptop was not out, but it was in the sleeve. You can tell that that's a laptop sleeve. So that was accounted for. It wasn't taken. And for someone to kind of come and take my jewelry, they had to walk pretty far into the room, and they had to pass my bag, they had to pass my iPad, they had to pass my laptop. So, amidst everything that's going on, I still have questions, because I'm like, you could have taken all this stuff, but you went and somehow found my jewelry box and took my jewelry. And like I said, a lot of the jewelry that I brought with me is my favorite pieces of jewelry. But what upset me the most is that my wedding ring and my engagement ring were in there. So I am thinking I'm never going to see those pieces again. So, the police come, like I said, they take my statement, and they tell me that they're going to do their absolute best to find who this was and get my property back. So I appreciate that, obviously, but I think maybe this is the messaging around law enforcement that I've internalized, and just me catastrophizing what is already a traumatic event even further. I'm thinking I'm never going to see my property again. I need to just kind of come to terms with that. So after the police come and go, the hotel takes me, or they assign me to a new room on the third floor, opposite side of the hotel, but it's not ready yet. So they take my belongings into their, storage area for luggage. And my friend and I, who I just met, and I will be bonded to for life because of this experience, she's like, let's go for a walk. Let's get something to eat. Let's just try to kind of, try and come down from this as much as you can in these moments. So we decide to take a walk outside, and we go to a smoothie shop. We get smoothies. We're chatting, just trying to kind of decompress as much as I can, process what has happened. I don't even really know what I'm feeling, honestly. I'm just trying to keep it together. I'm a little bit more distracted now because I'm outside. I'm in a new environment. Remember that I'm in a completely new place that I've never been before. So that kind of helped with distracting me a little bit. I was just kind of looking around, observing what's in front of me. We went to a smoothie shop, got smoothie, sat down, chatted a little bit. And we were walking back. We were, getting ready to walk back. And this was maybe like an hour later, because we had walked quite a bit. We stopped at a donut shop, but we didn't get anything. And then we went to the smoothie shop, got our smoothies, and went on our way. So while we were walking back, I got a call from the police that had taken my statement maybe like an hour ago or a little more than that. And they asked me where I was. I said I was just down the street from the hotel, went to get something to eat. And they were like, we think we found the person who intruded into your room and we think we have your jewelry. Can you come and identify it? I was like, what? That was the last thing I thought I'd ever hear, and so soon. So I was trying not to get my hopes up, but it was tough not to, because for anyone who has seen my engagement ring, it is a blue sapphire with a gold band. So it's a more unique piece of jewelry. And when they took my statement, they asked for a picture. So I gave it to them. So they knew what it looked like. And that was, the hallmark of the collection of jewelry that was taken. So if they found the ring, then they found the jewelry, but I wanted to see it for myself. So we were walking, and then they called me again. They're like, where are you? We thought you'd be back by now. And I told them that, we walked because, it's close and everything. They're like, oh, you walked. Let's go get you. So one of the policemen came and picked my friend and I up in the police car. And then we drove to the other side of a major intersection. We drove to the opposite side of the front of the hotel. And between that and the hotel was a major intersection. We were on the opposite side because the front of the hotel faced a major intersection, and then the back, like the surrounding, I don't know, however the hotel is built, all the windows, or most of them, really faced the beach side. And then the front was like the road. So the policeman drove us to where like 2 or 3 other police cars were. And he asked my friend and I to stay in the vehicle. And then one of their other partners came around and was like, is this your jewelry? And I started to tear up because I never thought I'd see my jewelry again. I was like, yes, officer, this is my jewelry. And he was like, is everything accounted for? I looked. I was like, yes. There was like a little chain or something that was in there. I was like, this is not mine, but everything else is mine. And he was like, okay. So I didn't get out of the car right away because they were like, we don't actually want you to see the person. So we stayed in the car, and ultimately I got my jewelry back. They put it in a bag. They gave it to me. I was so thankful to them. I was not expecting this outcome. Like I said, I was getting ready to leave California without my jewelry and never see it again. But the law enforcement, these guys came through for me. So all this happened between I realized my jewelry was gone around 8:40 a.m. And then I had gotten it back by maybe 11:30, maybe even sooner. I remember checking into my new room in the 12 o'clock hour, if I'm not mistaken. So all of this, and I had just gotten there, almost about 12 hours ago, because I'd gotten to the hotel, midnight on Friday. So much had happened and my head was spinning. Once I got checked into the new room, I just kind of laid in the bed. My new friend came with me, make sure I settled in. And then we decided to meet a little bit later in the afternoon. So this was the first time the whole morning that I was alone. And honestly, I got in the bed. I just laid there. I just laid there for an hour. I just laid there. I felt a little frozen. And I don't even know that I was processing what happened. I think I just needed to be still for a second, Yeah, I just laid in that bed until I had to leave to meet my friend for lunch. Whew. So yeah, I held it together for the rest of the day. It wasn't easy, but I think I was so happy to get my belongings back that I just tried really hard to keep it together. And then, when I got back, when we started meeting for lunch, I started meeting a lot of the other women, introducing myself, getting to know new folks. So I was distracted. I was pretty well distracted for several hours. We went to lunch and a wine tasting. And then we went to the fire pit by the pool. And then we chilled for a bit and went to dinner. So the rest of the day was pretty busy. But when I finally got back to my room, I just started to cry. It was so much. It was so much that happened. So I was sad that the trip had kind of started this way. I was sad that this happened to me. I was sad that now, like, this was part of me in a way, like this was part of my story. I was just sad all around, and it was hard to hold both realities in the moment of, essentially the best case scenario. Somebody came into my hotel room and I was not hurt. I did not have any interaction with the intruder. I didn't know anyone came in. It was when I got out of the shower that I realized what happened. Because I was in the bathroom the whole time. So, recounting the events of the morning, it hadn't even been 24 hours. It was hard. So I broke down at the end of the day. But I felt okay. I'm on the 3rd floor. Nothing like that is going to happen again. So I got settled in, and it took a little while to go to sleep, but I eventually went to sleep. And then I woke up in the morning, and I opened the blind, and it was a beautiful view. I had opened the blinds the previous day when they had, finally transferred me to the new room, and it was a beautiful view. I had opened the door for a second, and then I closed it. But the next morning, which was Sunday, I had opened the blinds, but I was scared to open the door. Despite my rational brain knowing that I'm on the 3rd floor, what happened the day before is not going to happen again. It's not going to happen again. Logically, I knew that. Rationally, I knew that. But emotionally, you couldn't convince me. And I could feel, this is a traumatic experience that I'm actively processing and going through. And I can feel the fear kind of taking over. Like I can feel my trauma brain trying to protect me, because even though this was a rare occurrence, it has happened, because there's kind of like I feel like there's kind of a veil of safety and protection that we tend to feel on a day-to-day basis. And when that has been ruptured traumatically, your brain is like, oh, okay, well, if this happened once, it can happen again. I remember several years ago when I lived in Delaware, around Christmas, I had gotten into a car accident. And, you hear about car accidents every day, but you get into the car and go where you need to go and you come home. And I never experienced something like that before. So while my car was in the shop and I was driving a rental, I was so scared on the road and I was hyper vigilant, and I was always like jerking my neck because I thought that like a car was moving weird, and like I was like, it was the trauma brain, in the driver's seat. So, it took a while to feel safe again driving, but I think the exposure of having to get on the road almost immediately helped me overcome that. And that's kind of similarly what was in play, with this experience. Logically, rationally, I knew this would never happen again, but emotionally, my veil of safety and protection had been ruptured. And now I was just like, well, if this happened once, it can happen again. So I wanted to open the door, but I was scared to open the balcony door. So I, kind of being in this field every day and helping people with this stuff every day, I was like, okay, I can see what's happening to me. I understand what's happening to me, and it makes sense why it's happening, but I need to do what I can to kind of get myself back into a mental space enough to where I can try and enjoy the rest of this trip and not let this traumatic experience impact me as much as it can. Like, I don't want it to debilitate me. I don't want to get home and feel like I can't do anything or I can't function. Because your girl leads a busy life. There's always something to do. The task list, the to-do list is a mile long. I just felt like, I could be actively processing when I get home, but I can't be paralyzed. I can't be paralyzed by this. So I was like, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to stage the room exactly how it was before I realized the burglar came in. So, the third floor room was not exactly like the first floor room, but it was pretty close. So from memory, I tried to make everything look exactly the same as it did that morning, the previous morning. I put my suitcase where I thought it would be. Similarly, I put out my belongings almost exactly as I could. The day prior, when I got my jewelry back and I got to the hotel room, I had washed my jewelry and kind of laid it on a towel in the bathroom. So I put my jewelry back in the jewelry box. I put it back in the underwear bag, and I put it back on the top of the dresser where it was while I was showering. I had put on my workout clothes. I had put on a similar Grow with Joe workout video, not the exact one, although it kind of felt like it was because even the same YouTube commercials were playing, which is so weird, but it was a similar amount of time, about an hour. And I realized that this was something I had to do when I had grabbed a towel to put on the floor for my feet. And as I approached the space where I would do my workout, I froze for a second, and I started to tear up and I started to cry. So I was like, okay, we have to do this. There is no ifs, ands, or buts, because I'm not going to be here forever. I'm leaving tomorrow. I don't want to take this with me as it is right now. So I teared up. I kind of stood for a second. And then I mustered up the courage to lay the towel down, because I think the biggest points, what was most traumatic for me that Saturday morning was seeing my jewelry gone and seeing the footprint on the towel. It was like, ooh. So I put the towel down and I opened the balcony door. I kind of put it how I remember as best as I could, and then I drew the blinds all the way. I did everything how I remembered it was the previous morning. Because this was kind of my attempt to remind my brain that, yes, this happened, it was traumatic, but it's a very rare occurrence. The likelihood of this happening again is near zero. I'm on the 3rd floor. I'm on the opposite side of the hotel. So I was trying to, kind of override the trauma brain that was in full gear. Because despite being on the 3rd floor, I was still scared to open my door. So I did all this and I got going with my workout. I did the hour. I finished it. Like I said, even similar commercials. I remember this commercial with Carmelo Anthony and his son Cayenne. And I think they were kind of playing on, not to digress, but I thought this commercial was so funny. Like Dwayne Wade had like a statue dedicated to him, I think in Miami or something. And there were like memes going around about the face he made to, I assume was his brother or cousin. They look so much alike. So people were saying how like the statue looked nothing like him. And then this YouTube commercial was like unveiling a statue for Carmelo. And it was like this huge podium and the actual statue of Carmelo was so tiny. And Dwayne Wade was there like, oh my God, it's such a masterpiece. Bravo, bravo. And then and Carmelo was like, Dwayne, please stop, please stop. And then his son Cayenne was taking a picture. I remember that commercial. It was hilarious. Anytime it came on, I would laugh. So it came on Saturday morning before the burglary happened. I remember anytime it came on, I would die laughing. So it also came on Sunday during the workout video. And I was still laughing. Like that commercial is hilarious. So yeah, I got through my workout and I was done. I was like, okay. I got my towel. I went to the bathroom. I brought my phone. I put on the same playlist, even though, with Spotify, it updates. It was like a peaceful morning playlist. So I put on the exact same playlist, not the exact songs, but similarly enough. And then I got into the bathroom. I got into the shower. I did my thing. So it got to the point where I was done. I toweled myself off and I came out of the shower and I walked to my underwear bag. I opened my jewelry box and my jewelry was there. So I kind of let out a sigh. I was like, whew, okay. The jewelry is there. The jewelry's there. And then I walked around the bed and looked at the towel and there was no footprint. And I drew the blinds open. The door was open like I left it, but there were no tracks on the balcony. There were no dirt tracks. Everything was as I had left it when I went into the shower. So, it did not, I wouldn't say it cured the trauma. But for me, it was a very important step to remind myself that what happened to me was horrific. And even though it was the best outcome I could hope for, I was not hurt. I had no interaction with the intruder. I was supported during that time by people that I didn't even know. I got my jewelry back. The hotel was on it as soon as I told them what happened. And something like that, the chances of that happening again were near zero, but I kind of had to show my brain that it wasn't going to happen again. I could tell myself that it wasn't going to happen again, till I'm blue in the face. But I think my eyes had to see it. My eyes had to see my jewelry in my jewelry box. My eyes had to see that there was no footprint on the towel. My eyes had to see that there were no dirt tracks coming up on the balcony. Like, I think my brain needed to do that reprocessing so that I'm not leaving California with the images of the traumatic experience. Like, I'm not letting it end there. Like, I'm not letting the story of this incident end there. It's, instead of it being the end, it's more of like the middle. Because in doing this for myself the next day, I have kind of like a new means of interpreting the end of this trip. It's one where I have my belongings and I am safe in the room, and what happened the day before hadn't happened again. And at this point, a full 24 hours had passed since the incident, which I think also helped me, because now I wasn't within the day that it happened, because it's Sunday now, and I wasn't within the 24-hour time frame that it happened, which constitutes a full day. So the 24 hours passing, and then the kind of seeing everything in its place where I left it before I went into the shower, seeing those signs of intrusion not being there helped me so much. And I feel like the trauma brain that was, in the driver's seat was, kind of taking a step back. Like, I feel like instead of my amygdala being, which is the place of fight or flight and fear and emotion, instead of my amygdala being in the driver's seat, it was now my prefrontal cortex, that was in charge again. And like I said, I'm not completely, at that point, it's not like I'm completely healed or have completely processed the trauma, but I think the worst of what could have eventually gotten even worse and followed me back home and maybe impacted how I was able to get things done and move throughout my week, the worst of that has passed. And the worst of that, I'm leaving at that hotel, and I'm leaving it in, California. So it was tough to do that, but I had to do it for myself. And I feel like there's a privilege in knowing that this is what I had to do because of the space that I work in, and knowing the impact that trauma and the impact that exposure therapy can have on helping you move past really scary experiences. So the rest of the day, it's where I'm there for a reason. There were events. I got to meet new people. It was still kind of hard, but I got to a point later in the afternoon when I was out with a group of women, and I was taking like these really deep sighs. Like it wasn't even, they weren't brought on by me. It was just like my body. Like, I was taking these really deep sighs, and I felt like a weight was slowly lifting over the course of the day. And by the time evening came around, I felt a lot better. Yeah, because some of the women had heard what happened, and people were asking me how I was doing, and I was happy to tell them that I felt a lot better by that evening time. And it wasn't just me saying that because I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable. I truly meant it. So, I got back Monday night, and Tuesday was work. I got back, I woke up, and I got to work. And it was kind of like a regular week. I think being able to know that to do that for myself was a gift that I gave myself. And, you know, when it first happened, if I had ventured to talk about it, I would start to cry, you know, but I told my family, and it got to the point where I was fine. Like, you know, I'm here on the podcast talking about it, and it may sound like my voice was cracking a couple times, but I'm okay. I'm okay. I can talk about it now and like be fine. So yeah, I'm sharing this because it's part of my processing still, you know, kind of having this be my outlet and talking about this to people who will listen. And I don't know who this might touch particularly strongly, but I wanted to share how exposure therapy can really help to get past traumatic experiences. And I don't know how I knew exactly what to do. It just kind of came to me, but I'm sure my clinical experience up to this point definitely informed the steps that I made. But I think there's also a privilege in that I could do this for myself. Not everyone can perform exposure therapy for themselves. So this is where I encourage folks who know they have gone through a type of trauma to consider exposure therapy. If you're seeing a therapist, maybe talk to them about what that could look like for you. If there's a particular experience that it could help move past. I don't think exposure therapy I don't think it'll solve every type of experience, but it's a concept for a reason. It's used for a reason. And I think it was exactly what I needed with what happened to me. I'm going to share some resources so that if you're interested, you can read more about exposure therapy. I'm already at 50 minutes of recording, and I was hoping that this wouldn't be too long of an episode, but I shared everything I thought was important. So yeah, I will link some resources on exposure therapy in the show notes. But I'm doing much better from the day after kind of doing this trauma processing, and, you know, having the community of the women, having my friend who was there as soon as I told her what happened, having those distractions when I needed them, I think also helped to, you know, feeling like the hotel was on top of everything once I reported it also helped. Obviously getting my jewelry back. Like, there were so many pieces to this experience that I think have helped me move past this. Even though there's still a sadness that this is like part of my story in a way. Like, this happened to me. I can't undo it. But I think over time, the sadness will kind of wane, and it'll just be what it is. I want to thank you guys for listening. As always, if you think this episode or past episodes have positively impacted you, please share, please recommend. Reach out to me, contact@thelettersandlayers.com. If you have any questions that I can answer, whether about this, whether about anything else, if you want my 2 cents on anything going on with you, let me know. Please rate and review on your preferred listening platform. I'm trying to get Spotify to double-digit 5 stars this year, so I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you guys so much. This experience that I have gone through, kind of recounting it, is part of my therapy, and I hope it helps, those who are out there. Whether this is something similar that has happened to you, or kind of just knowing based off of how I dealt with it, what you can do in the future if God forbid, this happens. But yeah, I appreciate you all. Thank you as always. And I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye.